Hello and welcome back around the bonfire. It's a pleasure to have you here. Maybe a day late, but nonetheless, it's the show reminding you that if you're trying to draw a distinction by calling it a prediction market, whatever the hell you want to call it, it's just time to call the number. It's that simple. It's John back again with Tim. We are off a day, but we are never really off, are we, Tim? Great to have you here, buddy.
What's the over/under on somebody getting in trouble with a league for predicting a game that they're involved in the next year?
I didn't gamble on me to score I, I, I didn't scam. Oh my god, scam. Wow, there it is. Anyway, look, let's hold off on holding off until we're ready to jump all the way in. It's great to have y'all back. We sit here today, Monday, February 2nd, and we are, Tim, 20 days away from the Chicago Fire season opener against, or 19 days from the Chicago Fire season opener against Houston. Yeah, against Houston in Houston. I wanted to call them Houston Dynamo.
The Houston Quakes.
Yeah, the Houston.
Run it all the way back. Yeah.
The Houston from 3 years ago now, right? Hector Herrera being back in the mix. It feels like they're like, well, it kind of worked. Like, let's do it again.
So remind me, midfielders age like wine, right?
Well, I watched Ted Lasso again recently, and Roy Kent's made that one big tackle, and he was old, Tim. Never specified how old, but he was old, right? That's how that works. I don't know. Anyway, look, we're back. We're on the verge of a new season, but we're not quite there yet. So we're going to talk about some other things today. Some Chicago Fire news, some league news at large, because there's some interesting stories in the MLS sphere. But I think we've got a good place to start, which is there are some reports out of South Africa today. Pouso Ditajane is departing the Republic of South Africa, heading to the United States of America to join Chicago Fire as they get ready to head to California to start the Coachella Valley Invitational Tournament. Do not expect to see him feature in that, whether that be visa reasons or purely he's never played on a field with any of these guys except against Mbezeli Mboaze. On the brighter side of that note, though, Tim, it does sound like Mbezeli is able to be performing with the team. Can I get a quick over-under percentages of likelihood that we see Mboaze on the field this coming weekend when the boys kick off the preseason tournament?
I almost did a thing where I was like, if it's above this number, like smash the buy. No, I'm not going to start doing that. Just screw that. Absolutely screw that. No, I think that it's likely we will see Mboaze getting some minutes while in Coachella. You know, Greg has been cautious with integrating players into like the lineup and stuff like that. He hasn't wanted to rush guys in. I think that he's had enough time with the team. I think that's probably also why Ditajane is likely not going to be, taking to the pitch. Wouldn't be out of the question, right? But like these are fairly competitive matches at a fairly high level, and it can sometimes set a guy back. Just as much as it can help him by putting them into a situation that they're not fully ready for if they haven't had time to integrate with the team and get to know their teammates in the system and all that stuff. So, yeah, we'll have to see. But, I mean, look, it's good that he's here and he will be with the squad for those 2 weeks rather than kind of doing what happened last year where a number of their arrivals were late. Like, Jay Davila didn't arrive until into the season. And he definitely had a hard adjustment period because of it, because it's a lot harder to learn those things when you've got a game every week. And, the focus has to be on that around you rather than just the squad together getting to a level.
And look, I'm glad you brought up Jay. The one thing I do feel obligated to say is like Greg talked about, bringing in Pouso with Mboaze kind of for the camaraderie aspect to guys who, I think they speak different languages as like their native. But they are, both grew up in South Africa, are natives there, and will share some culture. It has been fun seeing what appears to be a budding friendship between the West African and the South African, between Jay Davila and Mboaze. If you're not following Jay on Instagram, it's cooled off a little bit, but right away it was very clear these guys were getting along. So that's kind of fun to see. And I'm trying to coin the Bash Brothers term. So if anybody out there works in graphic design and wants to make a Bash Brothers graphic for Jay and Mboaze, I think that will do numbers. Conservatively, it would do numbers, 100%.
RIP attacking player shins. All right.
Literally, though. And faces. Have you seen the way he boots the ball into people's faces and ends their careers? Anyway, beware.
Not out of
Lionel
injury,
Messi.
just out of shame.
Yeah. No, all right. Let's move on here. Talk about the most handsome and dangerous man in Chicago soccer, Philip Zinkernagel. There was some reporting this week. Pumas had placed a $4 million bid for Zinkernagel and his services. That was rejected. A little bit of context and reporting from our friend Joe Chats at On Tap Sportsnet. Part of the move, part of the reason Zinkernagel made the move to MLS in Chicago was for some stability. He had bounced around. He had been a loanee for a long time, and the comment from Joe was basically it's going to take a lot more than that to make him give that up. So it does seem like Phil is here, barring a Godfather level offer, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, obviously, with him under contract, right? Like there would need to be agreement both between the player and the squad. I think right now, Berhalter and everyone at the Fire probably feel like they got a DP level player for significantly less than a DP level contract. And, if can you replace that with $4 million? And the answer is no. So I think that, if you're looking to compete with your squad, it would need to be like screw you kind of money and not the kind of money that the Fire aren't really hurting for. Um,
At a certain point, you would be better served in that situation by, and I mean this entirely sincerely, eating the money on Jonathan Bamba and using a buyout on Jonathan Bamba and extending Philip Zinkernagel under a designated player contract. And
I
like
don't know.
that's not an anti-Bamba thing. I just think that's in terms of what you're getting out of him.
We'll talk about this with the season preview coming up, but like I honestly don't know that I would necessarily go that route. I mean, again, because he had that great
I
season.
wouldn't
Right?
go that route, but I'm saying like if that's your only option.
It's just not going to be the only option, right? Like he's under contract,
Exactly.
he's happy to be here. It would take a lot of money from Pumas, and like they would need, and again, like it would be an adjustment to another country, another culture. It's also one where if in MLS with him under contract for this many years, right? Like if Zinkernagel has a few couple of months, which so far he's hardly had a bad couple of minutes, let alone matches, let alone but if that were to happen, right, like he would still be in line for working his way back, and it wouldn't really be that hard because that's just the way MLS rosters have to be constructed. Pumas' roster is not built that way, and the life expectancy of somebody in a job in a managerial position in Liga MX is like they've got a half life about like some very very transient elements, and so it's like even if the manager said, "Here's how we're going to use you. Here's our plan for you," all of that stuff. 6 months later, things change, and
Yeah.
where are you? Right? You're like a 32-year-old guy that may not fit into someone's plans.
It's funny that you say that. Like, is there a seat that is less hot in professional soccer than Greg Berhalter's? Because I mean, like, look, it could change, right? I think you could win like 6 games this year and he would still have a job comfortably, which sounds insane to say, but just based on what we've seen in the past, it's like that one playoff win bought you probably your entire contract plus a renewal.
I mean, depending on what you're referring to as Greg Berhalter, the director of football, or Greg Berhalter, the coach, Rafa Wicki got multiple years despite the team playing bad. As director of football,
Like Rafa
Georg
Wiki
Heitz was
isn't
here-
in America yet.
Georg Heitz was
He's
here.
not even.
Georg Heitz was here for 5 years. The team did not make the playoffs and got close the first year in a league where you could get you could basically during COVID get into the playoffs with a doctor's note. So
Literally, yeah, no. And look, yeah. Anyway, I say all that to say, isn't it great to not have to worry about who your coach is going to be in 6 months? Well, let's keep it moving. Not too much more to say about that, other than we're happy that Phil is here, and we hope to have him for years to come as we look to open a stadium that we need to call it the house that somebody built. We don't know who yet. Could be Jonathan Dean. Tough to say. Next up in line here, going a little bit wider lens. Talk about MLS as a whole. The note I have here, after some review, of course, the Euro snobs are quaking in their boots. A bunch of big moves for MLS players this week. Obed Vargas officially sold to Atletico. It looks like he's going to be going on loan for a period of time before actually featuring in the first team there. Serious offers from Real Betis for Kevin Denke. Cincinnati ended up valuing him well above $20 million, and for a guy who's not looking to move on, that is a tough price to crack for Real Betis. Bayern also expressing serious interest in Nimfasha Berchimus this summer. He can't actually play in Germany until he's 18 years old. So again, this would be in the summer that he would actually make that move. And then Ricardo Pepi, obviously in the Danish league now, but an MLS product, of course, had a $40 million agreement to move to Fulham fall through because for some reason Ajax just did not feel like finding another striker, even though they'd hypothetically been working on this deal for a while. It's a very weird system. Long and short, though, it's been a busy window for MLS teams in terms of sending players out. Tim, can I get a quick vibe check on the league at large, if you will?
I mean, look, it's good to see these moves. I think they kind of come and go in spurts, right? Like some years we see a bunch of like, earth-shattering moves into the league. We haven't really seen that this offseason. Some years we see a lot of movements out. I think it just is a good sign that like the league is continuing to grow. It's continuing to get better integrated into global football. I think it's going to really accelerate starting after the summer of 2027 when MLS switches to a European-style calendar and the windows align better. And what's amazing, I think, is just the number of players that have had real interest that ended up not moving, which I think also says something about the staying power of this league and the way that it's growing.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, right, you had Kevin Denke of an offer coming in around $20 million, and guy's 25 years old and is choosing to stay in MLS. I don't think that's nothing. I also think it's interesting the amount of movement you've seen to Spain specifically. Not who I would have picked in terms of like a like for like in terms of the way the leagues operate or the way the play style is. But a lot of, just a lot interesting, like, kind of footholds there. The other thing we'll talk about here really quick, it was announced late last week, FC Porto and FC Cincinnati have signed a strategic partnership deal. It doesn't appear to include any kind of player privileges or academy privileges or anything like that. It seems to be exclusively scouting and data and infrastructure, giving Cincinnati a better foothold into the European market, and more importantly for them, giving FC Porto a better foothold into the United States so they can continue to set up academies and things of the like. It's an interesting deal. I was very surprised that it was FC Cincinnati, to be frank. But it's one of those things that it I feel like it draws some eyes. I don't know. Correct me if you feel differently, Tim.
I mean, these deals have been going on forever. Like that's the thing about it. Like the Fire were I want to say like 2011, part of a strategic partnership featuring Club America, I want to say Atletico Madrid, and a Brazilian club, which is escaping me now. And as far as I could tell, it resulted in the teams playing a friendly each, and then that was kind of that, right? It had like a fancy name. They said it was a strategic alliance. These things can come and go, right? I think especially because, FC Porto are not about to, wed themselves to any one MLS club because they just, I think, are realizing that this can be a team that they do a lot of, or league that they can do a lot of business in, and tying yourself to one team isn't really going to do that. The scouting stuff, I mean, yeah, I guess, like, I don't know, like, scouts, like, are you looking for the same things in people? Like, are you trusting the same reports? It's
I think a lot of it just comes back to data. I think for the most part, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm the foremost expert on the strategic partnership between FC Porto and FC Cincinnati. But it did seem like a lot of it is going to come down to the data and like player profiles, and then kind of allowing you to do whatever your scouting department would do with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I'm not sure how much that's really worth, right? Like, and how much of it you really can't just do, but I guess we'll find out. It could be more than almost nothing, but it seems like a lot of those things are the things that teams can kind of be doing anyways, and can happen informally or formally, and there's starting to be standards of the way that that's done around the world, and I don't know.
It's kind of not to backtrack a little bit, but I think we've kind of said all we can say about Cincinnati and Porto and what that means. You mentioned not a lot of outgoing or incoming, or not a lot of big incoming moves. we haven't even mentioned that there are two different teams in the league that have spent close to or over $15 million on incoming players in this window, right? Inter Miami bringing on a player from Mexico whose name is very Geramo Ventache. Something I'm totally screwing that up. I'm so sorry. I should have had it written down and I don't. And obviously Timo Werner going going to San Jose, which was interesting to say the least.
Yeah, the Timo Werner
Kinda,
thing is he had been linked to a move to MLS for a while, right? And like the valuation wasn't that high. Moving to the Red Bulls, who were obviously like a related club to his previous club, and it just didn't happen for some of what I think you could maybe say are like the silliest reasons of, all time. But here we are.
yeah, no. Look, I also think I guess the other thing I'll say, and then we can move on, is I think the overlap between I mentioned Spain before, but Spain, Portugal, even France. You saw Jackson Russell Rowe going to Toulouse, and the Netherlands as well. Like, I don't think it's nothing, right? I think we talk about MLS in the context of somewhere in that 7 to 12 range in terms of like international or domestic football leagues. I think the conversation is shifting towards more that 6 to 8. And I'm interested to see what 2026 and the World Cup actually does to that. And frankly, what the political climate maybe does to that. And this is obviously not a political show necessarily, but we saw some players from Minnesota United kind of speaking out about what that's been like for them. And I hope it doesn't kind of tamper what seems to be a very good thing moving for the league as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. What's kind of crazy, and we'll do this when we do like the season preview, but it's not so much a team spending 15 million bucks that's changed, right? It's because like that's been kind of going on for a while, and all that. And Miami spending money on guys is sort of like you almost just like let it wash over you because but it's the number of teams that are upping their game on the transfer market significantly, like teams that used to be known for not spending any money, spending lots of money. And you're seeing fewer, I mean, maybe not no, but like fewer of those like MLS head scratcher moves of like, on what earth is this guy worth anything like that kind of money in the year of our Lord, whatever. I mean, not none of them. I mean, like Facu Torres to Austin in the year of our Lord 2026
Yeah.
for nearly $10 million is definitely in that category. But I think it's becoming a league, like the age of the players that are coming in is typically going down, which not that necessarily means all that much, but you're getting guys that are more in their prime. And the guys that you're getting that are maybe, we'll just say super prime as a polite way of putting it, is someone who was significantly older than that a long time ago. Like it's the quality that you've seen there has gone up significantly, right? Like, I mean, Sun Heung Min is not a DP wandering around the pitch smoking a cigarette.
Yeah. No, well, true. And I think the other interesting thing I keep kind of coming back to is like some of these like just mid-level moves, things that keep a club. It's different in MLS, of course, right? Because the roster rules and the way that works, but like things that would keep a club in Europe healthy, right? The idea of Martin Paz going to Ajax, like that's not nothing. You know what I mean? Like that's I don't know, good to like pretty good to maybe slightly above pretty good goalkeeper in MLS going to a team that will play Champions League football this year. And that's not nothing, right? It's not just clubs spending and spending and spending. It's making things a little bit healthier of an ecosystem from purely a footballing perspective, which I think is interesting.
Man, you know what I also just thought of? Sorry, no, what you said is 100% true. Matthews Bogusz going to Houston for whatever it was. Like, I mean, my God, like, what is it with these teams in Texas, man? Like, what are you doing down there?
They just want to run it back. They're like, what if we can just like it's very reminiscent of like their infrastructure plans where it's like, bro, I promise if we build one more lane on this highway, no more traffic. I swear you'll be able to get anywhere like that. It doesn't matter. Like they just like one more 30-year-old guy who was good in the league 3 years ago. I swear we can get it done.
I just need one more hit, and then I'm good. That's all I need.
Yeah,
I promise.
Just put it all on black and it'll come through this time. I swear. Yeah. Look. All right. So anyway, things are good in MLS, but some things are also very not good. Two kind of bits here. The first one we'll start with MLS officially announcing that they've signed a partnership deal with Polymarket. In their release, they said Polymarket and MLS plan to work together to develop new fan experiences across MLS digital platforms with a focus on enhancing the live match experience and second screen engagement for fans. These efforts are intended to bring supporters closer to the game through innovative digital content across MLS and Leagues Cup platforms that reflect real-time collective fan sentiment around team moments. Now, I'll let you talk about this, Tim. Don't worry. I just want to point out innovative digital content. We haven't gotten that from the broadcast partner that's paying over $250 million a year to broadcast the league, just to be clear. So apparently now we're going to get it from the fake gambling site.
It's not gambling, it's prediction. It's completely different. It's not about somebody placing a wager on something. It's about the market settling on a more probabilistic position based on the relative knowledge of the different participants and, putting money on the line for it so that we can all benefit from enhanced predictions based on what we had before. It's completely different than sports gambling.
Okay, I want to put this out there. I really enjoy gambling. I will occasionally go to the casino. I sports gamble regularly. I bet on MLS games very regularly. I hate this with a burning passion, and you know that, Tim. I think anybody who has ever talked to me knows that. The biggest issue with Polymarket, to your point, to this, that the whole thing Tim just did is the perfect reason why you should hate Polymarket. They're a marketplace that thrives on scamming people, on insider information, on not having any safeguards in place to keep the public safe, and not just making money somewhat unethically, but, hey, we're going to steal from you. We want other people to steal from you. In this announcement, MLS said the partnership includes safeguards designed to protect the integrity of MLS and Leagues Cup matches. To be clear, there's nothing in place right now that would stop a player like Chris Brady from betting on the over-under and then allowing goals in. They haven't announced what these safeguards are. This isn't sports gambling, so there's nothing they can do in terms of, quote-unquote, match fixing.
What do you mean there's nothing they can do?
I mean, not that there's nothing they can do. Go ahead.
I don't know. I think we're coming at this from different places, but reaching the same conclusion, which is, I think when they say that there's going to be safeguards to protect the integrity of the matches, I believe that players and coaches and everyone around the league is going to have exactly the same restrictions around making predictions on Polymarket that they do on gambling. I think it's going to be virtually identical. I think that now, there is a theory right behind the way that prediction markets work, and I don't necessarily think that they're all a scam. It seems like in practice, the way that a lot of these decisions are being made ends up being not really working the way that because economists have talked about the importance of what prediction markets could do for a very long time, right? There's all kinds of people that would benefit from having better predictions of uncertain events happening in the future. And in theory, if you had very large sums of money on the line for I don't know, a forecast, right? Right now, if you're making forecasts, the market for you is very limited based on what people pay to get the weather. And I mean, there's commercial stuff and stuff like that for farmers and stuff, and those are the ones that would benefit. But even then, the market's fairly limited, and it's hard to get new players. And if you made a better mousetrap, it's not really clear how you monetize that. In prediction markets, right, you would build a better mousetrap, you'd have the better forecast, and eventually you would just start cleaning the table on whatever markets because you would be better at predicting it. And then people would start being able to rely on more accurate predictions of the weather, which could benefit all kinds of people, right? So that's the theory. In practice, the amounts of money we're getting, there's so many bets on NFL games, and I'm just saying bets because come on, that the entire market for the thing ends up being in the thousands, or maybe if it's huge, it's a couple $1,000,000 on Polymarket. I'm looking at right now at them. The Super Bowl has an $8 million volume. Do you know how tiny that is compared to the number of bets that are probably placed on the Super Bowl outcome on the
Hmm.
smallest gambling platform in a given state. Like, and so there's not an incentive for people to be predicting the weather in the, like the, central, Nebraska or whatever, given these sums of money, and it makes it an amount that's a lot easier to game. And it feels like it's just basically people putting a few bucks in the line, or a few $100 or a few $1,000. And the difference is, if it starts to be a problem, there's fewer restrictions on having to cut somebody off, and there's no prediction hotline, right? Of like, I'm predicting too much, right? The way that they're like, it doesn't do a ton, and I'll grant you that, but like the way that there's in theory some safeguards in place for problem gambling.
No, I do look. I want to kind of also say on the other side of this, like I'm not a fan of any professional sports league partnering with any kind of gambling outfit. I think it kind of, in the words of the ever wise Mike Florio, it just opens you up to all sorts of questions, right? When you're encouraging people to gamble as something that kind of needs a certain level of objectivity, it ultimately leads to questions about officiating that were already there, right? How bad is every blown call going to look when it is no longer MLS? It is MLS presented by Polymarket, and I understand that's not how that's going to sound, but I'm just being a little
Yeah.
hyperbolic there.
Uh, and well, to kind of
And and I also would just point out like you're right in that the safeguards for sports gambling are very well they're very well laid out. I would have liked to see that information spelled out exactly here, and not just there will be safeguards. We promise, like it's going to be fine.
well, and put
That
it,
it's not.
and despite all the safeguards, right? Because like the different platforms out there have, I mean, it's not foolproof, obviously, because people keep on, you know, we keep on finding examples of someone that was able to in some way wager where they shouldn't have been able to wager and stuff like that. And like, but like the number of times that we hear about it too just proves that a lot of the technology kind of does work, or the technology, the people, and the systems do work eventually. Um, Even if it's not in real time, it's fairly advanced technology, right? And like a lot of it is designed to be cross-platform. So like, it's not like this is the official partner and you can wager somewhere else. It's like there's data sharing and stuff, so that like they can get fairly good information about a lot of these things. A poly market, I don't think is going to have that. Right? I mean, or like, what are they going to like? Are they going to actually get it from companies that are offering like gambling? Because that again is just another tell that this is not really any different than that.
And this conversation I think reduces down to the problems with prediction markets versus the obvious problems with sports books that's I do think have better safety guards in place, right? I think the biggest problem with prediction markets is kind of what you're describing right there, Tim, is like, does Kalshi have any obligation to report anything to MLS in the way that Polymarket does? I don't know, right? Because it doesn't matter if FanDuel is the official sports book of MLS, DraftKings, Bet Rivers, Hard Rock, whatever it is, they all have a responsibility to report any kind of suspicious trading to the sports leagues, whatever, right? Because that's part of how this operates. As far as I'm aware, and I would be very happy to be wrong about this, I don't think these other prediction markets have that same responsibility.
So technically speaking, and this is a big part of why this is happening, because sports gambling is regulated by states. So you can be in some states where you do not have legal sports gambling,
Yes.
or a certain platform isn't available, and other ones are. Um, the As it stands right now, and there's lawsuits about this, but the prediction markets are considered derivatives, legally speaking, and so they're regulated by the CFTC, same as other, any other derivative product, right? Um, Now, there's an act in Congress that would formalize some of this more, but I can't believe I'm taking the gambling lobby's side on this, but the American Gaming Association has kind of argued, if it looks like a bet, then and acts like a bet, then it is a bet, and like that's really the way that a lot of this works. Um, you know, Now, like, and as a in the context of a derivative, right? Like, you're looking more like insider trading, right, than other things. And there are regulations around insider trading. Having said that, the regulations are a lot more geared towards like what happens when the CFO has non-public material information about how the company is going to be doing and starts dumping shares, or tells their you know, neighbor or whatever, hey, can you like buy the stock for me? I can't buy it now without it looking suspicious, but I promise I'll give you money when it goes up, right? Um, so, you know, it's it's and look, insider trading cases are a lot harder to prove than anything else. Yeah, like and that's the thing about this. Like it's because of the federal regulation of it and not the state regulation. It's because of the tax code and stuff like that around it. Like that's and look, I get from a certain perspective, it's like if a sponsor comes to you with enough money, then it's kind of silly to say no. Um, I will say your take on like, sports league shouldn't partner with official whoever. I get where you're coming from with that. I would say that the advantage of it from a certain perspective, and I'm saying this as someone that like has to try to figure out like who's healthy enough to play and stuff like that, is until very recently, like MLS didn't do league wide injury reports at all. It was teams would just like write whatever they wanted, and like some absolute heroes at MLS headquarters would try compiling all of those and putting it on a list on the MLS website, but it wasn't an official injury report. Now we get that, but it's a lot later. In theory, right? Like if you have an official gambling partner or whatever, like there might be incentive to start getting that information out sooner, which I think would help, talking about the games more intelligently, people preparing for the games more intelligently, both from like the team side as well as just like people that are talking about the games and writing about the games and people that are wanted to go to games and stuff like that. Because we're still not getting anything like what we get and have gotten, by the way, before sports gambling was legal. So this isn't 100% connected. But in other sports where it's like, oh yeah, they're on like the, like whatever, this many week IR because of whatever. We're just getting, they're out, because they've got a problem with their body. And you're like, well, I'm glad we were that specific about it.
There's more to say here, and I think I don't know, from my own distaste, I don't know that I'm making the most coherent or best points, but I think
No,
I
look,
think
it's
there should be a healthy level of concern about this. And I understand the point you're making about there is some benefit to it. And I don't disagree. I wouldn't say like it's 100%
I would say
negative.
there's a potential benefit from it. Like I don't like there's
Yes.
because we didn't see that because the league also announced an official sports book partner last year, and we didn't see any of those benefits then. So like
Yeah.
you know
I just look. I think that the issue is you're just opening yourself up to more liability, right? It is that simple, and especially like. And the one leg I think you can stand on with a sports book is like they are regulated. Like, look, will players try to take advantage of it? Probably. There will almost certainly be some kind of, maybe not literally point shaving, but point shaving esque scandal in the next 10 years. I would feel very confident betting on that, right? But there is regulations in place to make it as easy to catch as possible. And I don't know that that is the same for prediction markets at this current moment, especially Polymarket, whose founder has been on the record, who is 27 years old, like on the record saying insider information is a good thing because it gives you accurate markets, right?
well, and
Like,
that's the idea. That's the idea of the prediction market hypothesis, right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
like
And
in
I'm just
theory,
saying for sports, that is kind of flawed.
yeah, no, I mean, like, look, in theory, right? Like, there are people the same way that somebody, like a farmer, could benefit from having more accurate information about the upcoming weather. There are people that can economically stand to benefit from more accurate information about how teams are going to do, right? Like, if you own a bar in Wrigleyville, and you know that before this season, like if you were able to get an accurate prediction on the number of wins that the team was going to get, that would help you maybe make some plans about what you're going to do for marketing and revenue and all that. And like, look, it would same thing of like, I know that my business goes up 30% when the team wins, and I want to know if I've got staff, and I want to know if I just bring people in, am I going to have to say, sorry, you're cut, we don't have the tables for you, right? Like there are people that would stand to benefit economically from it. That's not what we're seeing from the way that these markets are being set up.
Absolutely. And look, you want to talk about a team or a city that might suffer because of a team's lack of performance. We're going to move on here, but Sporting Kansas City fans, I feel for you, man. Your coach isn't even in America yet. That's tough. That's tough, dog. I think they have less players on their roster than we have days to MLS to the season kicking off right now. They have 17 players on the roster. League kicks off in 19 days. That's tough.
including
That's
four
tough.
goalies, including four
Yeah.
goalies.
So when we had Drew on a couple weeks ago, I think I made the comment like, "Hey, it sounds like from the way this article is going, like it sounds like they're saying they're punting on this year and really gearing up for the new, league when it starts up." And Drew was like, "No, no, no, I don't think so." Fortunately, I think he was incorrect on that one. It sounds like they are going to push hard for 2027.
There's always next year. And you know what? Next
Yeah.
year, there's two next years because there's the sprint season and
There you go.
as well as the season that starts in the summer after that. So
A little clausura for your apertura. Look, the other thing we want to talk about league wide. There's a great report from the Guardian via I'm going to say unofficial friend of the pod. I don't know that there's anything that could make him a friend of the pod, but I'm going to say it because I want to. Pablo Mara earlier in the week regarding a few operational changes to MLS and how Apple TV is planning on operating in this coming year. The first of which being that they are major changes to the Spanish language broadcasting. So Spanish language MLS 360 is gone. It will not be a part of the programming for 2026 and as of now beyond. The league will also be employing about half as many two-man Spanish language commentary teams, meaning there will be on any given week 7 two-man broadcast booths and 8 solo broadcast booths, which is not great for obvious reasons, even in a secondary language. If you want to call it that. And it sounds like from the report that the league was not impressed by the numbers and they are kind of reprioritizing their assets. But I think regardless, it is a pretty disappointing move in a lot of ways.
yeah, I mean, and we've seen changes every year. Some of which are sort of neutral or to like positive, right? Of like, is the league trying something that didn't work, or like trying to fix something that didn't work, and like we'll try something else, and it's not like clearly a retreat. It's just we're doing something different. Like we saw early on, like the format of MLS 360 really changed a lot in the first few weeks of that first year. Of like initially, it was like a bunch of people standing watching a giant virtual screen watching soccer, and you were watching people watching the screen, and like that was turned out to not actually make for great TV. And they figured that out and they pivoted, right? Um, and so like we've seen changes like that, but we've also seen some stuff that is clearly aimed at saving money. And then like there's been other stuff like that they've changed the production behind the scenes every year. It, I mean, let's just say that they've yet to find the promised land.
Well, and let's kind of run through the rest of the changes, and then maybe we can talk about it a little bit, kind of at large as well. There's also directly from the article here from Pablo's reporting, season passes English language offerings will also be downsized. MLS wrap up and in studio show airing at the end of each match night, featuring analysts reviewing the daily's action, will no longer be produced in its previous state. A league source confirmed that a post match night component will still exist, but viewers will no longer see in studio talent on camera, which is the most nonsense word jarble way of saying that you're not getting what you want. You're not getting anything. You'll get nothing. You'll own nothing and you'll be happier, right? What's that old quote? They also
Like,
announced.
is it just going to be a stupid AI highlights package? Because my God,
That's the thing. Well, and just to wrap it out, and then we'll keep talking about it. Sources have also told the Guardian that MLS is planning to produce about half of its matches overseas, employing IMG to do the work of its studios in London, England. We'll talk about that more in a second. Yeah, Tim, I think to your point there, it's like, yeah, I could just roll every single goal that was scored in the day and call that post-match, content. Like, I think the frustrating thing to your point is like, I'm not opposed to tweaking things and trying to find things that work. I think even on a much smaller scale, like we do that here. You guys have noticed, I think, significant changes in our programming over the last 2 years. I think the concern is like this doesn't seem to be what can we do to get it right. This seems to be how can we stretch our dollar as far as we can get it.
some of it, yeah, right. Like it's clearly a retreat on the Spanish language side, right? Like, and it's instead of MLS 360, like they have, I mean, they don't have to, I guess. Like they could do what they did with French, where not every game is covered. They also at one point had said that they were going to be starting to broadcast in Portuguese, and that just went by the wayside.
I mean, yeah. It's Portuguese, you know? I don't look, French and Spanish make a ton of sense because those are number 2 and 3 languages for the most part of markets for these teams. Portuguese is kind of like, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
more.
mean, I get that. It's
Come on.
also like the largest other market that is anywhere near your time zone, right, in Brazil. So you got
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like
for
it's,
sure.
I mean, like again, it's not. But I'm not saying that that was like something they needed to do economically. I'm just saying to go from we're going to also be doing Portuguese to we're going to have one man crews or one person crews. Although I believe that all the talent that'll be doing it's if it's the same if it's some of the people from last year and they're not bringing in new people, um, would be men. Um, it's I mean that's hard. Like that's hard work to do. That before Tyler Terrence came and covered the Fire for those years, like he was doing that out of a studio in Florida, like for some very thankless CONCACAF work, and it's hard to talk through both sides of a game for 2 hours alone, and it just is not as good of an experience if you're listening to the game, right? Like anyone that's heard it, like it doesn't matter how good the person doing it is, it's not as good of an experience as having the back and forth. And, I don't 100% know, like, what's the silver lining on the Spanish side. I mean, they can say they don't like MLS 360 as much in Spanish. We don't have the numbers that we were getting, so we're going to be doing this instead. And this could have been, like, more sideline reporters, but instead it's clearly we're just spending less money.
Yeah, and I think that's what's frustrating, right? I mean, look, we've I we've talked, I think, a lot about Apple TV and what this deal has meant to the league. And it does kind of feel like, look, you just renegotiated and re-upped this deal for an extension with the new league years coming in. And it feels like this. Tim, look, I'm going to say this. If I am the person in charge of negotiating this deal and you tell me you can have $300 million dollars a year or you can have $225 million dollars a year, but we'll give you a pregame show, a postgame show, two-man teams for every game. We'll give you a morning sports talk show on Apple TV every single day that talks about MLS at large. And I'm not saying
So,
that was offered, of
so to
course,
be clear about the
but
way that this works, so like
yes,
the economics of the deal, Apple's giving MLS money and then MLS is producing the content. Like they're buying it the same way that like sometimes you'll see like an old TV show that was on one network that ends
yeah,
up on Netflix or whatever. I'm sure that there's contractual obligations about certain amounts of things that need to um that like, you know, need to be done and not done and like all of that. But in general, it's MLS producing the content and then it goes on Apple's.
I think the point, regardless, and obviously, yeah, whatever.
But no, your overall
Not
point
gonna
is
stew
right
on
though.
that.
Like it's
The lack of those guarantees of programming is bad. I don't want to just say it's
well,
bad,
no,
but like it's hurting the league.
I agree. And like that's the thing. I think I'm with you on the overall point, which is that MLS could be spending more money producing more content and probably doing more to grow the audience. Especially like MLS season pass is gone. MLS season pass was a bet that they could get enough people that were either non-season ticket holding individual fans or league fans. Essentially, it was that there's enough people that are league fans, that are fans of Major League Soccer, to pay $100 a year for it. The fact that it's gone, I mean, some of that seems like it's strategic from Apple and probably a positive for MLS, but it just seems like there's not enough MLS fans out there to have been really doing it. Because if it was making Apple a ton of money, it doesn't matter if it's still a $1 trillion company and it was making hundreds of millions. Like the way that Apple got where they are is because they know how to make money with things, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, and look, like it's not. I'm not seeing any of the things that I wanted to see year one of like other than match days, like where like you can turn on the TV and watch a lot of content about MLB, NBA, NFL. You can watch NFL content a month after the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like
How about the MLB on Sunday nights previews that we're getting all throughout the NFL postseason, right? Like this is it's kind of the conversation we had late last year, where it's like the failures of the Apple TV is that you have no built-in marketing. Like nobody cares about Apple TV programming, even though it's actually kind of awesome. If we're being honest, like some of the best shows on television are being made by Apple right now. But like and look, I don't want to reopen that can of worms, but it's like this is what you lose by not signing a deal with Fox or with NBC or with ESPN. Like You could have Colin Cowherd doing 30 minutes on MLS twice a week. You could have, I don't know, Mike Greenberg talking about the Colorado Rapids for some reason. Like, of course not. But you get what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of balls being dropped, it feels like, in
Exactly.
terms of the content space.
Because like that's really what made like the NBA go from a small regional league that like was not in the same conversation as the MLB or NFL coverage was, to being a force of nature that people talk about, where there's people that don't care about a particular team and they can probably name you know 10 guys on the team now, right? Like
It's like, look, to that point, right? You know what built the NBA? It was Magic and Larry. It was Magic Johnson and Larry Bird being incredible. And you know how they built it? Because every media company had an incentive to report on them. There is not a media company that has incentive to report on MLS, and you have the biggest player in the biggest sport in the world playing games for your league every single week, but nobody cares because nobody has an incentive to report on it.
well, Apple does though, right? Like they could be producing this content, or not Apple, but like Apple and MLS. Like MLS is producing the content. They could be producing it. Like no one else is going to, obviously, and this is a make or break deal, not entirely, but in a lot of ways for the league, because they were really expecting going into the Apple, like what became the Apple deal, to have some kind of a bidding war and to have numbers not like exactly what the Premier League is getting from NBC, but they were expecting same ball game, if not exactly same ballpark. That didn't happen, and that should have been a reality check. That's why I like that it was a 10-year deal. It's been renegotiated, so it looks like shorter. There's an earlier out, which is probably good. But that means that date is moving up, and MLS has between now and then to make that next deal happen in the same scale. And like, you're not going to do that by going down to one person broadcasts and not having shoulder programming, and especially like not like, say there's no games on a Tuesday because there's not really anymore, right? Like, which, why are there no games on a Tuesday is another thing, or a Friday especially. Like, why can't I come home from work and watch a game on it? Like, right? But why is there no one that is doing like a Monday morning analyst sort of show? Like, why is there no one that is talking to me about what's going to happen that weekend on Wednesday, right? Like, why are like, there's no reason to go, like when there was the season pass sort of like app or channel or
Like,
whatever we want to call it, there was no reason to go there other than match days.
and that's the thing, is like that's the overarching problem with Apple, is it's like, it's this, they view it as this single entity product, which is match days, versus NBC, CBS, ESPN, Fox. It is, hey, we're going to have 8 hours of programming every single day talking about the NFL for 9 months out of the year. And like, I'm not expecting that for MLS, but do I think you could get 3 hours a week from every sports network in the world if you just did what every other league does and parse out your deals so that everybody gets a slice of the pie? I do. Especially with,
Nobody
again,
wanted the
the
slices.
biggest
Like,
player
that was
in the
not
world.
happening. Like,
I
nobody, they
understand.
didn't want the slices. That was not going to happen, and I get it. But then again, that's the reality check. And so, if nobody's going to do that for you, this was MLS's chance to be doing it themselves, and they're not doing it,
That's
and they're scaling back. Like, they needed to start doing that and providing that. And then, if you got more people involved, I think you would start, even if there wasn't the direct involvement. Like, you had, like, NBC didn't have NBA games for a very, very long time, and they still covered the league in ways that like MLS is not getting covered because of the scale of the league and how important it is. And like, it seems like I know to most people it probably seems crazy comparing the NBA to MLS, but again, the NBA was not a big money league before the Magic Johnson Larry Bird rivalry happened, right? And like, that was
Yeah.
completely manufactured. That
The
was them
finals were on
deciding
tape
to make
delay.
it happen, right?
Yeah, you're right, Tim, in that, like, look, if people didn't want it, or if nobody wanted to buy the pieces, I just, you have to have one or the other. You have to either have like a major market, or a major brand, I should say, pushing your content and helping you make it, or you need to step up to the plate and make it. And they're not
And
doing either right now, and that's the failure.
and so many of the owners that have come in are orders of magnitude wealthier than the owners were before in MLS. It's no longer like, they're looking at the value of their franchises more than anything else. There's not like a revenue crunch that is going to make the league implode. The league implodes if it stops growing, and the league stops growing if you can't figure out TV, because stadiums around the league are generally pretty full and ticket prices are pretty high. And so the way to fix that is you get revenue from people that are not in stadiums that are already full, and that's TV. And if no one's going to do it, you do it. 30 billionaires, like the chicken and egg problem, you solve it because 30 billionaires have a lot of money that they can buy a lot of chickens with and a lot of eggs with.
And ultimately, a lot of it comes down to the problem of MLS at large, which is you're being a little too safe. You're being a little too conservative. You're not spending enough money. And again, you look at the leadership of the league and say, like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, yeah, Tim, you got 30 billionaires. You've got Joe Mansueto, I without looking, is not in the top 5 of richest MLS owners, and he's worth $7 billion.
A little less now. But
yeah,
AI, man.
well, yeah, a little less now.
Anyways,
I say
still,
that to say,
right,
like
what he cares about financially, this is not 100% just financial for him, but it's not financial, is the valuation of the team, right? And the valuation of the team is way higher if there are, 1 million people watching every Fire game on TV rather than 100,000 people.
Yes, I guess my point of the safety there is, like, at some point you have to take a step, you have to take a swing, you have to take a risk, and not to say it can't be a calculated risk, but you need to take a risk at some point. Otherwise, your valuations will stop growing. And because I think we both agree, like, look, if you really, really wanted to, you could just say, spend whatever you want. And I think MLS would be a top 5 league in the next 2 years. I think it could be up to the par of the Premier League in the next 3 or 4 years if you just said, spend whatever you want, bring whoever you want, we're not going to count your money. Like, you might also be, now that's too big a risk, don't get me wrong.
I don't think that. Yeah, but like it could certainly climb significantly. And
yes.
And it's about building something, but like, again, it's
about
there are
building
times that you can build a step by step, and there's times that you need to do a transformation. And there's clearly on the media side a need for a transformation. And what we're seeing is not just step by step. We're seeing 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1.5 steps back, or 2.5 steps.
And that is as good a place as any to wrap up here. The last thing I'll say is always remember that the commissioner of the league works for the owners. Just going to put that out there. In channeling, I've already mentioned, I'm channeling a little bit of Mike Florio here. The commissioner works for the owner. I'm not saying, I'm just bringing it up so the people know. No. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in and listening to us ramble about nothing for an hour here. Even though things may have been a little bit light news-wise, we hope we can always put something together that is interesting. We appreciate y'all tuning back in, listening as always. If you can, check it out. Check out this site, menofred97.com. That's where you'll find all the latest news, updates, and things of the like if you want to know what's going on in the world of Chicago Fire soccer, including why Robert Lewandowski to the Chicago Fire might be real this time. New story from Alex Calabrese as we're recording this evening. Would definitely go give that a read. A new piece about Jonathan Bamba trying to get to the World Cup with Cote d'Ivoire. Would recommend going and giving those a read. You can also stay tuned to all the social medias at MenOfRed97, anywhere and everywhere that you get your content, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Skies, Threads, really wherever you want to see it. If you could also go ahead and wherever you're listening to this, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, pound that like button. If you could subscribe on YouTube, that would be great. We're posting the full video of every episode to YouTube now. You can also subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. Anywhere and everywhere you can find it. And I say all that to say thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it for Tim, for our illustrious producer Austin, who is always putting in some work to make sure these things get out on time. Thank you so much for joining us around the bonfire, and come on, you men in red.